Our landlord told me, go ahead. Call the city inspector, so I did. This happened in 2018. I just moved to a new apartment. It was a 3-bedroom first-floor apartment and it had a finished basement. It had 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen on the first floor. It also had a bedroom with a full bath in the basement and a bar, gaming area. It was also in a very nice area of the city. The apartment was owned by a corporation. Honestly, we loved that apartment until it kept having recurring issues in the basement. The carpet was wet from time to time. At first the landlord would send a cleaner to come and handle it, but it keeps happening. I asked them to check and fix the issue. They did not do it. I told him I'll call the city inspector to check the building. They laughed at me and told me, go ahead. Call the city inspector. So I did. I called the city twice until I finally was connected to the right department and they sent an inspector a week later. The inspector found so many building violations. They told me they'd contact the building owner and would come again. The next day, the owner called and begged me to tell them what I know about the problem with the apartment. I told them that I sent complaints multiple times. They should check their record. The city inspector, the owner and the property manager came 2 weeks after that. The city inspector was whooping their asses. He laid it to them. It was bad. They have to deal with structural and foundational issues and some safety issues too. There were 4 tenants in that building including us. Imagine it was a big colonial, multi-family home divided into 4 apartments. They had to break the lease with all of us to fix the building. They couldn't fix it with us being there. We were ready and already consulted a lawyer. We told them that 1. We want our deposit back before moving out. 2. They paid for all of our moving expenses. 3. They paid for our deposit at the next place. They could not kick us out. They could not rent the apartment after the inspections. There were 4 of us and we could all sue them for placing us in a dangerous building. In the end they spent so much money to relocate us and fix the apartment. Nice. After all, he did dare you to call the inspector. I lived in one of those once. Definitely know what you mean about loving it. But once things start failing, I mean they are super old houses. Sometimes just gotta cut your losses and call the city. What kind of building violations did it have? Sounds really serious. This gave me a justice boner. Wish I had this outcome. We called inspectors on my last landlord and they found all sorts of issues. Thing is, my landlord just decided to keep paying fines rather than fixing it. We broke the lease and he never saw justice. Place is still falling apart with shitty wiring, mold and a leaking roof. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. Haha, we did the same thing, 70 safety violations and the house was torn down. Fuck them. They laughed at me and told me, go ahead. Call the city inspector. So I did. This is how I imagine you saying that. https u2.be/j37e1ec2 my t equals 513. Had an apartment that had repeated issues and also some that the landlord just ignored after being told repeatedly for 6+ months. We decide to move out. So landlord starts showing the apartment. When people would come by we'd be like, here's the hole in the ceiling that they haven't fixed for 6 months, and shit like that. They had the fucking audacity to email me and tell me to stop pointing out problems that were extremely obvious to begin with. With all the patience I could muster, I replied politely telling them if they had fucking fixed it in the first place, then we wouldn't have anything to point to. And also that was the whole reason we were moving. They were going to have to fix it either way. But now they had to do showings and sign a new tenant up and all that bullshit instead of just cashing my prompt checks each month. Absolute fucking clowns they were. Did the landlord keep his job? I'm assuming the landlord is not the same person as the building owner. I had one of these situations with bedbugs once. My wife was 9 months pregnant and woke up one day with welts on her legs. Found dead bedbugs. Told the landlord. He said it was just dust mites. I told him I would call the city if he didn't do anything about it. He hung up on me. So I called 311. Now, anyone who has lived in NYC knows that when it comes to bedbugs the city does not fuck around. I had an inspector at my apartment within the hour. Found the bugs. Landlord had to pay to fumigate the entire building and foot the bill to wash all our soft goods. Turns out the bugs had migrated to the building next door. I think he had to pay for that too. His cantankerous wife ended up calling and screaming at me. So I called the city again and reported them for abuse. Don't know if that's actually a thing or if the city actually did something about it, but I never heard from her again, and the landlord was deeply apologetic. Landlord. What? You actually called them? Quote. Tenant. Why did you think I wouldn't? Quote. Landlord. Because nobody else ever did. Quote. Tenant. Probably won't be so high and mighty next time some threatens to call again. High quality MC. Okay, sign. I just love happy endings. Well done. Think of all the pain and money those guys could have saved by simply not being dicks. And all this from a wet carpet XD. What you might get out of the OP's story. If you're living in unsafe rental conditions, call your local city, municipality. There's likely strong rules around structure and safety issues, and they can have the authority to fix it. Building codes are there for a reason, so people don't die. And based on my limited experience, city building inspectors get really interested in violations. I love this story. I hope it is true. Never underestimate what someone knows just because they are paying you a rent check. This guy thought he knew more about everything because you were a tenant. Look at how that turned out for him. You knew who to call and how to fuck up his year. All because you were unhappy. When someone threatens to call the correct official about an issue, don't ever dismiss their threat as a bluff. Some people know their shit. And at least know someone who knows their shit. Stories like this are better than porn. Nothing makes me happier than when cocky people get absolutely destroyed. Especially when they say, haha, I dare you to do it, and then you literally do that exact thing and it completely backfires in their faces. Reminds me of when I told my ex-wife that I should maybe call the guy she was cheating on me with. She said, you can if you want. So I did. Boy was she mad. My wife works in tenants' rights. Landlords do this dumb shit a lot. I've heard of guys renting out illegal basement apartments where the tub fills with shit every time you flush the toilet and they refuse to fix it and dare tenants to do something about it. Then they cry poverty when they have to pay 6 months back rent and moving expenses. Happens all the time.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.